Okie dokie, so here we go. Carl's Sourdough Bread Factory. So I've got my starter here, and you can see there's some goo on top of it. I haven't fed it this week, but I'm going to feed it now so that you can see what that's all about. If you feed it about once a week, it'll be fine. I always give it the smell test. It's got a particular smell. It smells sour. It smells kind of pungent, but not rancid. It doesn't smell bad. It smells like sourdough bread, actually. So to feed it, what you're going to want to do is give it equal quantities of whole wheat flour and water. So I usually use a half cup. So just a half cup, and it doesn't have to be super precise. And usually I like to feed it and then let it sit for a while. So half cup of flour, half cup of water. There we go. Like I said, I usually like to feed it and let it sit for a while, do its thing. But the active yeasts that are in the starter, they're going to do their thing. Whether the starter is sitting around and it's doing its thing in the starter, the flour in the starter, or it's doing its thing in the dough. So you're just looking for it to go nuts. So just feeding the starter here, so you can when I give you your starter, you can do the same about once a week, and it'll get some liquid on it, you know, and you can just stir that back in. I think it's mostly alcohol from the fermentation process. And it's flavor. So there we go. Feeding the starter, getting it all nice and gooey there. So kind of looks like that. So for your bread, and I'm going to make the dough here, and so you can see what all that entails. So for your bread, remember the recipe is 1, 2, 3, or 1, 1, 2, 3, if you will. So you're going to give yourself a cup of that starter. One cup of starter. There we go. Awesome. Excellent. And I'm going to feed this again so that I'll bulk this up and I'll have some to give to you. So in the bowl with the starter, there we go. 1 cup of starter. Boom. So you can see 1 cup of starter in the bowl. Where is it? There it is. Hopefully you can see it. Excellent. So there. Actually, it would have been easier for me to move the bowl, I suppose. There we go. Cup of starter in the bowl. I'm going to put some water in there. And I usually use warm water. Again, you're trying to get the yeasts. Usually use warm water. You're trying to get the yeasts to be happy and do their thing and make other baby yeasts. And the warmer the environment, up to a certain point, you know, you don't want a hot environment. I think around, you know, between 70 and 100 degrees, somewhere in that range is a good environment for yeasts to be reproducing quickly and doing their thing in an efficient way. So I've just stirred up this water starter mixture. So that was 1 cup of starter, 1 cup of water. There's your 1. So it's really 1, 1. 2 is 2 teaspoons of salt, and I'm going to put the salt in after some of the flour because I don't want the salt to directly get in contact with my yeast, because salt kills yeast. The salt is there for flavor. It's also there to limit the yeast a little bit. But, you know, again, this is not a precision science. It's kind of a rough thing. So I'm going to start with some flour. And you want 3 cups of flour all together. And that's approximate. Some of it's going to be dependent on how wet your starter is, how humid it is in the world, what's going on with your flour, that kind of thing. So the 3 cups is just merely an approximate. I do half and half. I do half white flour and half whole wheat flour. It makes for a fairly heavy bread. You can lighten it up by using less wheat flour in your ratio. So, you know, if you want to use 2 cups, 1 cup, that's fine. 2.5 cups, half cup, whatever. Just as long as you have kind of like 3 cups of flour in there. So what I'll do, this is a half cup measure here. So there's a half cup of white. There's a half cup of wheat. You notice I'm not measuring like really precisely because it's not that kind of thing. So that makes a whole cup of wheat, or white, and a whole cup of wheat. So we're at 2 cups now. 2.5 cups white, wheat. There we go. And then I'm going to put my salt in. So watch my real precise measuring here. 2 teaspoons of salt. Fantastic. If you want to add any flavorings to your bread, fruits or herbs or anything like that, now would be a good time to do that, and because you want to get them circulated through the bread. I'm not going to do any of that right now. The last loaf I made, I did some rosemary and garlic, and it was delicious, but I think I'm just going to make me a plain old loaf right now. So all you're doing here is getting this all mixed together, just stirring it up. It'll start to form and hold together a little bit. With this recipe, especially if you have enough moisture, which you'll see here, it's pretty dry, right? And I'm gonna, as it starts to hold together a little bit more, I'm gonna knead it a little bit and just see how it feels. But with this recipe, you don't have to do that. This is technically a no-knead kind of thing if you want it to be. I don't know that there's any particular advantage one way or the other on that. I generally like to knead it just because I like to know what's going on with the loaf and the consistency of the bread. So you'll see it's pretty dry. I mean, it's a little sticky, but you can still see a lot of the flour on the dough there, even though I've been kind of working a little bit. If you were going to do a no knead, you'd want it to be a little bit wetter than this. You'd want it more spongy, I guess, than this. So. But I generally need mine, so I'm gonna put some flour on my hands, just like that, Flour on my hands. There we go. And I'm just gonna start to work the dough a little bit. And again, you know, not a precision science here, not a right way to do it or a wrong way to do it. Just kind of getting it all combined together and squished together into a dough. And this particular dough today, it feels a little dry. Again, you can kind of see there's little pieces hanging around in the bowl. And as I squish it together, it's getting a little bit better on that, but it's still a little dry. So what I'm going to do is add a little bit more moisture, and I found that a little bit goes a long way. So usually what I'll do, if everything thinks they're a little dry, what I'll do is I'll just wet my hands. So I'm just going to go over to the sink and wet my hands. So there you go, wet hands, start to work it in. When you knead the bread dough, it starts to activate the gluten in the bread, and you feel it become a little rubbery, and that's a little elastic, I guess, and that's the gluten in the bread doing its thing. And get a little bit more moisture in there. I find that best results come from having the dough be just a little sticky, where it kind of clings to your hands a little bit. I also like to get all the stuff out of the bowl. So I'm gonna wet my hands again. Get a little bit more moisture going on. Oh. Yeah, that feels a little bit better. So it's starting to, I don't know if you can tell from the video, but it's a little bit more glistening, I guess. You actually feel some moisture on the surface of the dough. And again, if you want to do the no knead thing, I think you would want to have it even a little bit wetter than this. It should sit in the bowl more like a sponge kind of thing than a dough like this. So you wouldn't get to this point where it's holding together. But so this is kind of where I like it. It might be a little dry still, but as I'm working it, it's kind of sticking to my fingers a little clingy, and that's what you're looking for. That's what's good. And then to let it rise and let the yeasts do their thing. You know what? I'm gonna add a little bit more moisture to it. It's just a little dry. Yeah, that feels better. So it should feel a little sticky, a little gooey. Yeah, I like that better. Almost, almost slimy, sort of, And then to kind of get it into you want it to be kind of a ball kind of thing. And I'm going to show you this because you're going to use this again when you form the loaf for baking. So if you just kind of stretch it this way, so I'm just kind of pulling at the edges, rotating, pulling at the edges, rotating. And I'm pushing on the bottom, I'm pushing the dough into the center. So kind of stretching and making a surface on top of the dough as I'm pushing the dough into itself. See how that works? See? Push and stretch, push and stretch. I'm just trying to get a surface tension working on top of the ball of dough. So you're getting it formed like that. And again, this is something that you're going to do. I'm just doing this now to show you again. But as you form the loaf for baking, you're going to do this. And you see that I kind of pinched the bottom close there. So you got yourself a nice little. Yes, spanking it does help. Got yourself a nice little ball there. So you're gonna let it sit for a while, and there's a danger of it drying out. If that happens, you get a skin on top of the dough. It doesn't come for good results for baking. So what I'll do is I'll just put a little oil in my bowl. Just line the bowl with oil. That's grapeseed oil, but you can use anything. So, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna roll the dough ball around to coat the outside of the dough ball with the oil, and that just helps it to keep from drying out while it's dry or while it's rising. So there we go. There's our little dough ball. All right, and I'm gonna put the lid on this bowl. You do want it to be sealed, so if you don't have a bowl with a lid or something like that, cling wrap something tight, something that's not gonna let other air get in there. And then I just turn on the light in my oven, the light bulb in my oven. Here, we'll move so you can see. In my oven, there's the light bulb back there, and it puts off some heat. And I'm gonna take the dough in its bowl and slide it in the oven next to the thing. Now you have to remember, of course, that if you're going to use your oven, you got to remember that something's in there. So there we go. That's stage 1 of our sourdough adventure. So I'll feed this starter again, and I'll let it sit for a little bit, let it work at room temperature, and then I will divide it up and give you some, so you have some to start with. So, okay, bye now.